Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Naprawa. I'm the president of Taal Technologies. I'm here today. I'm really glad to be here today to present our company. For many of you, I'm sure the first time, and it's a really exciting story. So I'm really glad to share it here with you today. So first of all, I'll skip over the disclaimer. Everybody knows about Bitcoin. It's very topical these days, and it's raised up past $40,000 recently. But not a lot of people understand the blockchain or the underlying technology below it. So what I'm going to introduce you today is something called Bitcoin SV. It's the blockchain that we're using, and the power, the infinite power that this has for enterprise. The president of IBM, she said just about a year ago, looking at Bitcoin and looking at the blockchain today is like looking at the internet in 1995. And if you're an enterprise and you're not prepared to understand the profound way that this is going to change your business and affect your business, then you're going to be left behind. And that's how we feel here at Taal. So we are going to be the infrastructure player of choice for the next round of the internet called Bitcoin SV. So we are a public company. We trade in Canada under the ticker TAAL. We think there's a lot of advantages and for investors with Taal. We are building the cloud-based infrastructure to allow transactions between people and machines, all on this thing called Bitcoin SV. It is the blockchain. It's the building blocks of how we're going to change and how we're going to communicate. And it's all starting right now. So we want to be the biggest, the largest enterprise infrastructure company in the world. Think about Amazon Web Services, except this is just for blockchain, and that's where we're focused in on. We make money three different ways. We make money as a miner. A lot of people understand how mining companies work on Bitcoin. So we only mine Bitcoin SV, which is the original Bitcoin as it was contemplated in the white paper in 2008. And we make rewards by mining blocks every single day. We're also, and most primarily, in the transaction processing business. And I'm going to walk you through what transaction processing means for all these big companies that we're working with. But we're talking about millions and billions of transactions that all have to get processed and indexed and published to the blockchain. That's our primary revenue driver for the future. We think that over time, as people understand what Bitcoin SV and what it's all about, and that number of people is growing every single day, minute by minute, that maybe the underlying price of Bitcoin SV goes up over time as well. And that's the third way we make money. We're in great shape financially. We have a big supporter in Calvin Ayre. A lot of you might know from, he was the founder of a company called Bodog in the gaming space. He was a pioneer in online gaming, and now it's such a mainstay part of a business. We've got DraftKings that are sponsoring stadiums, and it's just such a big part of our life now. So this is another industry that's coming. It's coming to the market, and it's going to really change the way we do so many things. We own our own intellectual property, we own our infrastructure, and I'll walk you through that a little bit. So for those of you that haven't heard about blockchain or haven't thought about it, I can tell you that the top companies in the country all have, and they've been spending money on this for years, not just for months, for years. I don't think there's a financial institution in the world today that is not spending money trying to figure out how they can learn and adapt and use blockchain in the future, because it is the future of how those businesses are going to run. And not just financial institutions, supply chain, logistics, healthcare, gaming, social media. All of these industries are going to be transformed and are being transformed with the use of blockchain technologies. And there's a whole bunch of them out there. We think we have the best one, but there's a whole bunch of them out there, and I'm happy to discuss all of those. On the right-hand side, you can see the stats. And if you're a curious person and you start learning about this, you're going to find out that every big consulting company in the world has people dedicated to blockchain and helping enterprise transform the way they do business using blockchain technologies today. I'm not going to get overly technical today or anything like that, but we're not changing the fundamental way things are doing. If you're a supply chain company and you're tracking goods and services, you'll still do that. But instead of just using your own databases or using some other web-based applications, you'll start to put this on the blockchain. There's a lot of advantages to that. So on the blockchain, it's permanent. Public blockchains are accessible by more people, so there's more utility in that. And there's a timestamp, which means that in a really simple way, what does the blockchain really do? It creates trust between two people without a third-party intermediary. And when you start to peel back that onion, it's really, really exciting about the things you can do when you don't need third parties. And it's not just banks and financial transactions. There's all kinds of transactions that all of us do every single day where we require third parties, and we can come up with a million examples of that. So what do? We provide all the infrastructure, just again, like an Amazon Web Services, that allows enterprise to transform their business using blockchain. We allow them to pay in fiat currencies, let them pay in dollars, just the way they make their money in dollars as well. So there's no risk on the price of the underlying cryptocurrency. So this slide is just a long way of saying, listen, there's things called transactions. They get processed and they have to get published to the blockchain. And to do that, we have to win blocks, which is that traditional part of the mining business that you guys kind of understand. So we have a lot of the infrastructure that the traditional miners have, but we're using it primarily to process transactions and publish in the blockchain in a safe way. So we talked about use cases and applications. There's so many. Already today, we don't have to go and hope that somebody's going to come along and develop in each one of these industry verticals. We're working with companies, and in many cases, multiple companies and integrators in every single vertical you can think of today. I try to use different examples every time I did the presentation, but for instance, on the left-hand side, you can see BitBoss. They have a big client called MGM. And they're working on casino applications for using blockchain. One, they would like to get rid of cash in the casinos. That's something that was happening even pre-COVID, but that's going to be a trend you're going to see going forward, certainly post-COVID, as we don't want to touch everybody's money. But it also gives you the ability to track, to reward, to incentivize, and all this stuff can live on the blockchain, and it can do a million little transactions super, super, super cheap without having to have servers after server after server or third party involved in tracking all this stuff. Supply chain, I'll walk you through a few examples. Unisat, that is on this chart, is a great example. They're in the supply chain management business. They're not asking any of these large enterprises to lift out any of the existing infrastructure they have, whatever ERP system you have, SAP, they're not asking them to lift that out. They have a plugin that works, and you're able to track, and in their case, their first clients are tracking seafood from ocean to plate, and being able to certify where it's from. Is it organic? Is it fair trade? And all those transactions have to be published to the blockchain so that buyers and sellers can trust each other, that information is absolutely true. We've got an amazing partner over on the right-hand side with Enchain. I'll walk you through what they're doing. Chronoverse in the gaming space is just absolutely massive, what they're thinking about. We've had a lot of excitement over social media. The example of Twitch down there. There's 4 social media companies in the world that make all the money. The only people not getting paid is us, the users. I think that's going to be a major shift, that as we share and we experiment, advertisers, that some of that dollar should come back to us. There's no such thing as free. We should be getting rewarded for that. And there's only one real technology today that could do that, make micropayments on scale, on a global scale, and that is Bitcoin SV. So here's some examples. I talked about the seafood opportunity, but just like Amazon started with books, Unisat is starting with seafood. But if you think about supply chain, it's a massive business. It's trillions of dollars of goods. I think you saw up there the Gartner example. We're talking about trillions of dollars of goods all being tracked on blockchain. That's where Unisat is applying all of their know-how and energy to try to solve for that. There's a million applications within supply chain, but anytime you can get buyers and sellers to trust each other without an intermediary or a third party, that's where the blockchain technology is so great. EHR, American company, amazing company that is trying to solve for patient health records on blockchain. There's a whole bunch of advantages of having permanent records on chain. Any of you that have been involved in the healthcare system know that you've got one record at the doctor and one record at the hospital and one record at the pharmacy. So they're focused in on just the opioid crisis. And the way the opioid crisis gets so out of hand is that one person gets one prescription and it ends up getting filled multiple times. And that's how you get all this illicit drugs out there. So if you had a permanent trusted record and you know exactly when it's filled and it has a timestamp, that's one problem that you can solve using blockchain technology. They're going to create billions of transactions that all have to get processed and all have to be safe and secure on the blockchain. GeoSpock is a smart city. I'm not going to go into all the details, but if you can think about all the things that go on in cities, all the sensors, all the data, everything that needs to be captured, and the amazing applications, the amazing knowledge that you'd be able to capture from that if it was all in one place and it was all searchable. I'll talk a bit here about our partnership with nChain. They're our sister company. They're based in Switzerland, UK, and Slovenia. They have more patents pended and granted on blockchain technology than any other company in the world. By far, they are the largest company focused on enterprise solutions for blockchain than any other company. And they have well over 100 developers that are just focused on blockchain technology. We are their preferred partner. We have similar shareholders. We have the same chairman. So if they're the software guys generating or originating BSV transactions, we are the infrastructure company that is going to is processing those transactions every single day. So that's an amazing partnership, and they are definitely the premier company. You'll see them come to the market someday soon. I encourage everyone to get smart on that one. That'll be an exciting time when nChain comes to market. So we keep talking about scale and what it means. It's like, so when you're putting transactions on the net, like right now, the utility of Bitcoin, and I'm not knocking Bitcoin, I own some Bitcoin, you know, it doesn't have any utility. There's nothing you can really do with it. You can't use it for anything. And maybe that's why it goes up every single day, just about. But our blockchain is meant to be used for something. So if we're starting small and creating transactions, but over time, in the social media example, it'd be billions of transactions a day, and they all have to be put on the blockchain. It doesn't work if you can only do 7 transactions a second. It doesn't work if you can only do 20,000 transactions a second. You got to start thinking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands transactions per second. Bitcoin SV can definitely scale that way. We keep proving it over and over again. And not only the number of transactions, but the size. You know, they can get very, very big as far as content goes. And that gives developers and companies and enterprise all kinds of flexibility in what they're trying to do. And that's happening today. I'm going to skip over this piece, except it's on our website, investor.taal.com. All we're trying to show you here is if you don't believe in the future of anything that we're doing as far as transactions or the value of BSV, just as a mining company, there's a tremendous amount of value that we're creating just in that reward business. As most of you know, in the mining business, you get paid for winning blocks. There's about 18.6 million blocks have already been rewarded. There's only 21 million left. That's the same for Bitcoin SV as it is for Bitcoin or BTC. So it's only getting harder to mine this stuff, and there's fewer and fewer to mine. Our mining is not dependent on the price of it, but it's still a nice to have as far as our business goes. We think over time, as people figure out that there is this thing called Bitcoin SV, and it's got a tremendous amount of utility, a tremendous amount of usefulness, that the price of the underlying coin will go up over time. And you don't have to look any further than Ethereum. That's what people have figured out. As far as smart contracts, they've done a great job. They've got 200,000 developers on their blockchain today. They're creating well over 500 million in transactions. And people understand that this thing called Ethereum has real utility, and therefore the prices started to go up. I think it hit a new all-time high just today. We think that the exact same thing can happen with BSV. You know, could BSV go from $200 to $2,000? Absolutely, it could. I don't see any reason why it couldn't, in fact. So as a company, as a public company, we've got a great structure. We've got 25 million shares outstanding. We're majority owned by insiders. You'd have a valid complaint in our liquidity, but we're really working on that. We're trying to get more liquidity in the stock, but there's just not a lot of supply out there. We've got a good balance sheet. As I mentioned before, we're backed by very well-heeled investors. There's not going to be an issue of us running out of money or anything like that. We certainly are going to be well-funded right to the end of our journey here as we're building out all our infrastructure, our software, and our applications. So there's very little debt, just $7 million, and that's from a very friendly group. We've planned out all of our infrastructure build for 2020 and beyond. The company's in great shape from a cap structure. There's no preferred shares. There's no converts. There's no multi-voting. There's no other funky business. We own the same kind of shares that you all can own. Just on a comparative basis, we keep talking about the miners because I refer to that because that's just a business I think a lot of you understand out there. If you can see on the right-hand side, we use this ratio about how much power we have under the hood. This is our Q4 exit rate planned. and you see that we're trading at a fraction of the other miners. So again, if you don't believe in the utility and the future of BSV, and the fact that we're staring, and I don't want to sound too grand, but these are big words. Like, we're looking at a brand new internet. This is like internet in 1995, 1996. This is the utility that this thing brings, not only to enterprise but the world. We're planning on being the infrastructure provider to get all that stuff published to the blockchain, and we're trading at a fraction of the traditional mining companies. So that's an opportunity for investors today. And with that, I'm going to just turn it over to Joe. I'm not going to go through everybody's bio. Those are all online.
Well, thank you, Chris. Very informative. Chris mentioned, my name is Joe Gomes. I'm a Noble Analyst. We're going to start the Q&A session. If you wish to ask a question, please click on the lower right corner of the video window. And Chris, I say we've got a bunch of questions coming in here, so I'll start with the ones here from the audience first. What percent of TAAL's customers will be utilizing zero Satoshi outputs so that TAAL's customers are paying fiat, not BSV, to create them?
All right, so that's a really technical question, which I think, if I heard it right, means who's going to be paying in crypto and who's going to be paying in cash. And I would say that all of our enterprise clients, and including our enterprise integrators, all of them want to be paying in cash. Their costs are in cash, their revenues in cash, and they want to pay cash to their vendors. And I don't think we have to be overly creative. Just look at the traditional internet infrastructure providers and the way that they bill for services. That's exactly what you'll be seeing from us. It's not going to be any different. You don't want to be a chief technical officer somewhere and having to come up with some new way of paying a new vendor. You want it to kind of match what you're doing everywhere else. It should be predictable. It should be monthly. And as we add more services and create more value, we hope that we can get more and more share of wallet with these enterprise customers over time.
Okay, the next one: will TAAL be mining BTC in order to generate more profit short term, as long as BTC is highly valued by the market?
I think that's a great question. So, like, hey guys, so I think this is like, Chris, what's up, man? BTC's at 37,000 and BSV's at $200. Like, what are you doing here? No, we're not making a short-term decision like that. And although completely uncorrelated, the price of BTC to what we're doing, it is favorable. Like, I like the fact that we have some of these things working out and people making money, because it does make the overall environment better. But no, we are 100% religious about Bitcoin SV. We're only building on Bitcoin SV. And in fact, there's not a lot of ways to play SV. Like, if you dig into it and you start to think that there's a lot of value over time, we are a pure play on Bitcoin SV. So in fact, not only do we win these rewards, it's our goal over time to keep it all. So I think there's some other public equity examples of guys that have kept their Bitcoin, and it provides another dynamic for investors to look at the equity rather than a balance sheet with just cash on it. So no, we're gonna continue to win blocks. We're going to win BSV. We're going to keep it. And over time, we're going to continue to educate the market on the underlying utility of that. That's part of our job that we just have to do. We just have to evangelize this stuff so people understand it. And by the way, like, every one of our investors, or almost every one of our investors, all of our employees and others, like, these are all people that have been converted over time to believing, holy smokes, there's a tremendous amount of value and utility in Bitcoin SV. How can I invest? How can I play along? So in the example of Taal, well, you get the mining revenues and the profit associated with that. And our company is worth a multiple today out of a share price just from that part. And I get a look at the future, and the future being billions and billions of transactions that have to get paid. And maybe it's getting paid a penny or a fraction of a penny. We are so much lower cost than our nearest blockchain competitors. Like in Ethereum, I think the average transaction price is somewhere between $1 and $1.50 US. The high end of the range for a transaction for us would be 1 US penny, and in volume much lower than that. So that brings in all kinds of applications that you wouldn't be able to do on other blockchains. So no, we're not interested in making short-term curves. We'll leave that to the investors to make those kind of allocations in different areas. TAL, if I leave you with one thing, is a pure play on SV for the future.
Okay. Another question. Hi, Chris. Thanks for your presentation. Do you plan to go public with your sister company, nChain? And I think you kind of alluded to that already, but I'll let you answer that one.
Well, we're already public, and let me tell you why we're public. Because if you think about who our client is, our client is the enterprise, and Bitcoin has a bit of a history to it. For those of you that understand the market, it hasn't all been good news in cryptocurrencies over the last several years. So if we're trying to convince you that there's this thing called Bitcoin SV and has a lot of utility for your business, and here's how you use it, use us for your processing. We're a public company. We're in Canada. Our equipment's in Canada. We're under the scrutiny of the regulator. We're under the scrutiny of the exchange. We're under the scrutiny of the auditors. Everything we do is public. We have to publish everything we do compared to a private company that might be in China or Russia or somewhere else. So that's why we think we'll attract enterprise customers, and that's the feedback we've had from our early adopter enterprise customers. As far as nChain goes, I'm probably one of their biggest cheerleaders, because the more I work with this company, the more I realize what an exceptionally deep talent pool they have, how right-minded I think their focus and their strategy is, and however they and their shareholders decide to get liquid in the future, I'll definitely be a cheerleader and a supporter. But TAL has its own path and nChain has its own path, but man, what a great partner to have. So that's a long way of saying I'm not answering that question.
Here's a couple more. We'll see if you can answer these. Where will the shareholder value be derived from for the short to long term? What products do you have on the roadmap for 2021? And is there any revenue forecast or pro forma for products yet?
Yeah. Okay. So let me answer all those. So every decision we're making, everything we're doing is very much focused on the long term. We're not trying to make any short-term decisions. For those of you that are looking for short-term value, I think I pointed out just on the mining side that we're going to create a lot of revenue, a lot of profit just out of the mining side before you have to believe in anything else we have to do on transactions. As far as long-term value goes, what you're going to see a revenue model come out of this is a predictable, recurring revenue model month on month on month on month. The market tends to like those examples. They really like things like AWS. They like things like Netflix. They like things where they can calculate easily what the month on month revenue is going to be and try to measure the growth. We're not waiting on one big contract for the government or anything like that. This is starting small and growing those transactions day after day after day after day. And that predictable recurring revenue stream, I think, is going to be very, very attractive to all kinds of different investors. There's another part of the question about products. So we're an infrastructure company. So the basic company is the infrastructure. Now, what do we do with that as far as future products? We make it easier for companies to interact with us. We add value through value-added services. We've already announced several products. Taal Console, which I think we announced in the first press release, is Mappy. That's how everyone connects with us. That's like the front door of our business. You're going to see more and more features on that console that makes it easier for different kinds of enterprises to be able to do different things with us. But the future is great. It's not just us working on it. There's all kinds of developers working on future applications for SV. So in the cases where it makes more sense for us to partner or work with somebody, we're going to do that. But things like, big future items like on-chain storage, on-chain computing, these machines that we use have a tremendous amount of power. Yet even if we fulfill kind of our mandate of being about 30% of the network, that still leaves a lot of computing power for us to do other things over time. And there's a lot of people that would want access to that. So we have a pretty robust roadmap for the future. Some of the basic stuff that we have to get done right now to satisfy existing client and future client demands are all about service, ease of use, making it valuable, taking out the risks and the headaches, and understanding that most people, they want this billed in normal currencies, U.S. dollars, Canadian dollars, British pounds, euro. That sort of functionality is something that I think has been overlooked, and it's something that we're going to deliver on.
I'm going to roll two questions in here kind of as one. Is it the goal of uplisting Taal, and if yes, when? And are there any plans for the company to pay dividends in BSV somewhere in the future?
Yeah, so we're on the Canadian Securities Exchange right now. I think that's a good question. I think it makes a lot of sense for us to try to look at other listings, whether they be domestic or foreign, to provide more access to investors and more transparency on the issue. So I think the simple answer to the first part of the question is yes. I think that's something that's part of our strategy. As far as timing and when and all that stuff, I can't give you a lot of precision on that. As soon as we can, we will. But that's definitely something that we want to do. Long-term goal would be a NASDAQ listing. That's something that we aspire to. We've held that as no secret. That's where the world goes to look for technology companies. So I think that's where we'd like to end up one day. As far as paying out dividends in BSV or some other format, I think the best companies in the world end up paying dividends. You can see from our cap table, our insiders own a great deal of stock. So when it comes time to do that, that would be a tactical decision that I think would make a lot of sense for us and for shareholders. But I want to emphasize that's not right now. Right now, all our capital, our time, and our energy is focused on growth. How do we build for the future? And a lot of things that we're building are really boring. Like there's some boring stuff going on that just has to get done. Because if you're going to go from a company that has 20 people to 400, let's just say, like there's things that have to get done to provide a stable platform for growth for the future, and making sure that we're in a highly regulated business, so that we're on side with the regulators. There's really important things that you have to do that you comply with Know Your Client, KYC, anti-money laundering, AML. All these things, they're really easy to do if you've got like 5 or 6 clients or 10 clients. If you're thinking about having thousands and how do you onboard people and manage all that stuff, that's a real challenge. And the more we focus on those kinds of issues of scale, I think the more the moat that we build around our business, and the more trust we have with our clients, with that enterprise client, and we've seen what these kind of enterprise clients can do if they make a decision. And I always use the Amazon example because it's a great example. Like when they came out with web services, everybody hated it. Nobody thought it was a good idea. But who loved it was enterprise clients, because it made their life easier. It made it more predictable. It gave them access to products and services that they wouldn't have before. And it was great. So that model, I think, works very, very well.
A couple questions here. On some of the people in your company, if you could elaborate on Calvin's position in the company, and also elaborate on the loans of Mr. Wright in BSV.
Sure. So Calvin is a strategic advisor and an insider of the company. He is 100% committed to the future of Bitcoin SV. He has, I am told, investments throughout the ecosystem, and is very, very supportive of companies that are looking to advance the cause of Bitcoin SV. So that's his stated goal. I think there's many interviews online where you can see what he has to say on the subject. We did take out a loan from Craig Wright late last year, late 2020, in the tune of $7 million US. We accepted that in the form of BSV. Some of our vendors accept SV already as a form of payment. Others do not. The good news is with this kind of with Bitcoin SV as liquid, we can change it to cash and back and forth as we need to. But really, capital is there for us to create value over time. So if we can deploy capital, whether that be human capital or in hardware or in infrastructure, and we think that we can model it out, that we can make money over time with that. Those are the kind of investment decisions that we're making every single day in the company. We don't take them lightly. We work really, really hard. We've got a very, very talented team. Just today was a great example of some of the things I saw coming across my desk of, some really thoughtful work about, the absolute value of some of the decisions we're trying to make. But we see a world where SV, appreciates over time. That's our bias. Our bias is that SV appreciates over time. Maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong, but that's our bias, and we're committed to it, and we're not going to waver from it. Like that, this is it. If you learn about our company and you learn about Bitcoin SV and you become engaged, I can tell you, we are not going to change track. This is it. This is a decision that we've all made. Everybody coming into the company is 100% committed to the future of this blockchain. It's really, really exciting the more you learn. I've been around it now just, half a year, 3/4 of a year, and I'm telling you, just every single day we learn something new where I think, wow, this has got a lot of potential. I hope we're positioning ourselves correctly to take advantage of all this.
Okay, got a couple more questions here for you. Couple around SV. One, why did the company exit from mining last spring and re-enter again this past fall, and kind of combine that with, you just said you plan to keep SV. Is this something you are already doing today, and what percentage of BSV do you hold on your balance sheet?
Okay, so there's some future questions and some past questions.
Yes.
The past stuff, like, I ain't talking about the past. A, I wasn't there. B, it kind of doesn't matter. But I can tell you that decision was made. There's a bunch of reasons for it, but at the end of the day, that equipment was not profitable at the time. It was shut off, and it was the right decision. I mentioned earlier that at the core of our business is that our network, our infrastructure are all in first world places, and in our case, we chose Canada to get started. And I've heard it from multiple enterprise clients. They'd really prefer not dealing with folks where the equipment is in places where, there's no rule of law and stuff like that. So, where that equipment was not going to suit our needs anyways. And we are not a mining company, and I know it's hard for people to understand that. There's a company that existed that we shared a name with that has changed the business plan a couple times, but essentially what you see now is a brand new startup that's inside this company. It's a very common structure in Canada where businesses can switch what they're doing inside an existing entity. That's what's happened here, and everything you've heard from us now has certainly been extremely consistent since I showed up in October, and it'll be extremely consistent what you're going to hear month on and month out for the foreseeable future. What was the second part of the question?
What percentage of BSV?
Oh yeah, how much BSV do we have? So I'll just point you to Q3. I can't remember the exact number, honestly. I have it in my mind. That was somewhere around $5 million. I'm guessing. I can't remember Q3 that perfectly, and I'm not going to give you any guidance or where it is today or where it's going to be in the future. All I'm going to say is that we're committed to it, and we very much want to own it.
Okay, and we got the final question here from the audience, wondering about U.S. analyst coverage. Do you have any? Is your plan to try and get some U.S. coverage on the analytical side?
Yeah. Do you know any? We'd love them. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think as the company grows over time, there'll be a lot more reason for analysts to cover. Broker relationships are very, very important to us. Investment bank relationships are very, very important to us. Anybody that's been around a small growing company, this is the 4th time I'm president of a company like this, 3 of them public, 1 private. One of them I sold to a major telco. what most people on the outside don't understand is how many people it takes to be successful. You need great advisors, you need amazing lawyers, you need an amazing HR department, you need headhunters and recruiters, you need a really great ecosystem that's helping you succeed. And the investment banks are certainly part of that. And we're trying to pick our partners very, very carefully who can not only help us on the finance side, like that's really important, but there's lots of other things, including analyst coverage and access to corporate and just great ideas. So, for any of my investment banking partners who are on the line, listen, we appreciate you. We're looking for, to surround ourselves with the absolute best.
Chris, this is all the time we have, and I just want to, say thank you for presenting here. This is just a fascinating story. Looks like there's, a huge runway ahead of you, and we look forward, to continuing to follow your company as you evolve. We want to thank you once again for taking the time.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks everybody that took the time to participate today.